Greetings, YouTube. Here I am. I wrote it in the description, but I said last stream that I was going to try streaming again, or was going to stream again, and so here I am. But I didn't announce it or advertise that I was going to stream, so I figure no one's going to stop by, or maybe one person had a chance. But I want to keep to my word anyway, so I'm just going to talk about tabletop things and then maybe other things. So if you're finding this in the future, then that's what's up. There are a few tabletop things that I've thought I could make a video about this. Not a long video, but just a video. And it's as good a thing as any to talk about. I saw somebody, I got a message on Instagram, but I didn't know because it was hidden from someone who's making their own tabletop game, which cool. Godspeed, motherfuckers. But I noticed that in the description, they mentioned it's a classless system. And honestly, I don't care for that. Anytime that a game is classless, or they let you mix and match stuff from other things, I think something else I was looking at a long time ago, I think Fabula Ultima lets you mix it up a little bit. It's not classless, but I think it lets you mix. Or maybe it was Sword World. I know Sword World, which is this big game in Japan, if the YouTube video I watched is to be believed, and I believe it, where they're oh, you level up in different classes and things like that. It's kind of MMO-like and whatever. People love mixing and matching abilities and making your own custom builds and shit. And personally, I don't care for it. It's one of the many times where I'm on the opposite side of everybody that likes fun and joy. But it's not for no reason. And I'll be honest, I don't hate a little bit of dipping in, but at the same time, it really, I don't know. I really value niche protection, which is weird because it basically doesn't exist. In the games that I've played, most of them have been pretty bad about niche protection. Most of them have naturally been D&D or D&D adjacent games, so I guess that kind of tracks, which is weird. You'd think a game with classes would be even better at niche protection than something that's a classless system. But even they fuck up. I think because they're not strict enough. It just really bugs me. So, classless, naturally that would be even worse. And you might be thinking, well, just talk to the other players in the table and then have them avoid the thing that you're gonna do. And you don't understand. I would really like to get what I want without having to ask other people for it. And also, even apart from that, even when people kind of try to respect your niche, I don't like that you have to rely on the rest of the table to go ahead and agree to that. And I feel even when you have people who do that, or I should say, in my experience, even when you have people that are willing to be sensitive to that, you still end up with scenarios where you're playing a rogue. Definitely talking about D&D now. You're playing a rogue, and then someone goes, "Oh, but the monk should pick up thieves' tools proficiency so they can deal with locks too." I just think it's a hard sell in general to people to go, "Hey, no, you should you should be dependent on this one person. And if that one person doesn't show up, then you just need to solve problems differently. Because I'm into it, I think that sounds fine, but I think there are definitely a lot of people who are like, no, you gotta have a little bit of redundancy. I don't know. I think it sucks. I It's my go-to example, actually. I was once playing in a game of 3.5, and one person playing had made a druid, and another person had made a wizard. But the person who had made a wizard had collaborated with the GM so they were properly optimized. And if you don't know, in the 3.5 edition of Dungeons and Dragons, you got skill points that you could put into skills. And what this meant was people with higher intelligence got more skill points, or at least that's how it worked. And so people like wizards would just have a ton of skill points. They could just be skilled, they could skill points at a bunch of things. But the thing that bothers me and why it's relevant is because there were multiple moments where there was a nature roll to be made. And so the druid would make that roll. The wizard would also roll because the wizard also has nature, and the wizard would always roll higher. The druid character, I don't know, had less skill points. They're not an intelligence based class like the wizard, so I guess that makes sense. And the druid player was very upset about this, very, very bitter. And at the time, if for some reason they ever see this, know that I have changed my mind. Because in the past, like when that happened, in those instances, and they got really bitter, they eventually just stopped saying he'll get it, and then they just stopped rolling altogether. And at the time, I encouraged them to roll anyway out of spite. But these days, I would actually copy that player's attitude and just not roll. In fact, playing a paladin in the last 5th edition game I ever played in, um, at least with my main group of friends, because the guy who runs stuff for my main group of friends hard converted to Pathfinder, 2nd edition. But like the last campaign that dude ran, I had religion. I was playing a paladin, but there was a cleric who also had religion, and I basically forewent rolls when the GM would say, "Oh, do anyone who wants to roll religion can roll religion," uh, and I just wouldn't do it because I figured, okay, that'll be that guy, and that's 5th edition where there aren't skill points. So in theory, like if you're proficient with a skill and so is someone else, you should be competitive, but like I just would rather the people who are supposed to be good at things are good at things. I don't like when people who just kind of have this other thing are just, I'm also good at this thing, especially in tabletop games, which is particularly what I am talking about. I do not like when, oh, the monk has thieves' tools proficiency, so they can pick locks too. Like, I don't like that. And I definitely think it is worthwhile if a system specifically like bars people from dipping in like that. Unfortunately, that also rubs up against a different problem, which is, does that make sense? To be a little more expansive on the topic that I am talking about, when you play a role playing game, you're also in the world. You're also thinking about it at least a little in what makes sense. And so the idea that some invisible force prevents anyone who's not the rogue from being able to pick locks doesn't make sense. It violates things from that perspective. But at the same time, it also sucks when like the rogue can't do it. Oh, but the monk just happens to like know how to do it and it's fine. Or in the druid wizard, the wizard always makes the nature checks better than the druid does. It violates what makes sense on the other way as well. I think that's just a big old problem in general with role playing games, maybe the eternal problem. Trying to model a world that feels good but also makes sense. because inevitably you just collide like that. And moving back to what I was originally talking about, I think that like classless systems just make it worse. I think that classless systems just make it worse because then you can just be all over the place. People love being able to customize themselves, and I can understand that appeal. But I'm definitely more a proponent of this is you, these are your skills, this is what you're good at. Be in there. And while I've never played in a campaign where I am truly special in my role, it would be nice to dream. And I feel like you get better odds if you have people in their own specific roles. In theory, Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop games are team games, and I never really played in a campaign where that turned out to be true. We're all just kind of doing our own thing, and we are vaguely helpful towards one another. But like, in theory, if you just had everybody and carved out niches, you could maybe have people with weaknesses that need to be covered by the rest of the team. And there's nothing stopping you in a classless system from collaborating and just making it so, but it would be nice for it to happen. Be nice for it to happen without having to like artificially make it happen. Is basically the end of my take on that. Another thing that I want to talk about that's tabletop related is it's actually kind of funny. I think that D&D alignment is fine, but that's technically not true. I think the only problem with Dungeons and Dragons alignment is that it is not easy to understand. I guess its greatest flaw is you have to actually read to understand it, which in this day and age is just a big ask. And I say that as someone who did not read the rules to 5th edition, but just assumed it was like 3.5 and then corrected myself whenever the person who had read the rules corrected it. Terrible, by the way. These days I read the rules to the games that I run, but I'm saying it's not like, oh, I read. No, I'm guilty of not reading as well. I think they're fine, personally. Everybody acts like they're so restrictive when, like, they're not. Not really. You're supposed to pick what alignment your character is. You don't pick an alignment and then decide your character after that. But people act like, oh, an alignment just restricts you and restricts your role playing. And, like, it's not fucking true. It just isn't. With one exception where it should restrict you, and the restriction is the whole point. But I won't get into that quite yet. People also act like alignment is this thing that like just can't change, and maybe it would be worth putting a short paragraph that no one will read into the books talking about how your alignment can change. And it doesn't have to be a big deal either. I was playing with my main like group of friends. We were playing through Tales from the Yawning Portal, and I made a fighter named Grenna because I have a cool fighter lady named Brenna in my series Treasure Takers, which is on this channel. There are at least 3 episodes out. Give it a watch. I don't know. And I was playing her as like this gladiator entertainer type. But there was a point in, I think it's the Glitterheim, I forget what the actual name of the adventure is, but there's an early on adventure where you're supposed to go to this ancient dwarven stronghold that's been taken over by orcs and things like that, and you basically go in there and you're looking for Durgeddon's weapons because they're worth a lot of money. They're forged by a famous forgesmith who is now gone, named Durgeddon. Anyway, there's a point where in town you're talking to the guard captain, and the guard captain's like talking about how there's a bounty on orcs that are roaming around and causing a lot of trouble. And someone, I think someone in the party, was like, "Why have a bounty for it when? Why have a bounty on orcs when the town guard or whatever can just go out and clean that up?" And then I cynically said, "Well, if you put a bounty on it, then some of the adventurers who go after the orcs might not survive and make it back, but take some orcs with them. So it's cheaper to just have people go out and do that, and then you only have to pay some of them, but you still get more work for less." And that is not, I had not played Grenna like that up to that point. I had put down her alignment as uh, I might have put it down as lawful good, I'm not sure, but I changed it because the image that I had of her was someone who, was an entertainer, and they just kind of they believe in the system and stuff because they just don't have any reason not to, and they're generally good. And someone who believes in the system because they don't have a reason not to doesn't say something like that. So I remember just quietly erasing that on my character sheet and changing it a little because I felt like, hmm, you could still be lawful good and have cynical ideas, but I felt like the vision that I had for the character no longer fit what I had written, and so I just quietly changed it. Alignment can change and it's totally fine, and it's no big deal. It's not supposed to control your role play. It's supposed to be descriptive, not prescriptive. And people walk around saying, "Ooh, it's so bad because you can't role play with alignment." And it's like, are you sure the person who just told you how alignment worked didn't know how alignment worked and you just believed them? You should have listened to someone who did know how alignment worked and never checked. Like me. I've checked. I once honestly thought about making a video. That's the theme of this, by the way. I already said it at the top. I once thought about making a video, and I was going to have a bit where I like posted the on screen the different excerpts from every edition basically that talks about alignment to show, oh, it's almost like alignment has worked fine and worked this way the entire time. Alignment is fine. There are some people that have some whack ideas about alignment, Gary Gygax being one of them. But alignment is fine. Its biggest problem is that people don't know how it works. So it's not fine, actually. But it's not fine for the reasons that I think, and not fine for the reasons that you think. Get it right. Another, I don't know, another video, I guess, though it's more like a strong opinion, so it'd be a very, very short video, would be that experience points rule and milestones are bad, and I don't like them. In fact, it kind of irritates me how many times I see people go, "Oh, use milestone leveling so it doesn't matter." But the thing that honestly makes me angry is whenever someone goes, "Oh, but if you use experience, everyone will just kill everything." As if, since the inception of Dungeons and Dragons, they've never awarded experience points for things that aren't killing monsters. I'm just pausing very briefly. There we go. That was my mom. I am the true archetype of the nerd stereotype. That aside, it just really makes me angry. And I know where it comes from. It comes from video games. Because in video games, you get experience points from killing things. And it's like the most commonly known way to get experience points. But like in the original Dungeons and Dragons, you basically got no experience from killing things. You got experience points from getting treasure. And not even getting treasure from killing monsters either. In like the OG Dungeons and Dragons, you were pretty fragile, and it was actually better to like take the treasure and run rather than actually fight. You just ended up fighting anyway, but because you couldn't avoid it. And then, of course, we have tons of games since then. Uh, and I think OG D&D might have done it as well, but there have been plenty of games since then that also give experience points for completing quests, for nonviolent solutions to problems, for discovering places and things, secrets. You can give experience points for anything you want, and the tradition of giving experience points for things that aren't combat, that isn't killing monsters, is a very long tradition, long-standing tradition. So it really makes me angry when people are like, "Oh, if you just use experience points, people are just gonna kill everything. It's so much better to use milestone." And I disagree. I don't like milestones, and I think they're smelly. And I think they're smelly for three reasons. The first of which being, I grew up with experience points, and so I have an inherent bias towards them. The second reason is because it just makes sense to me. Like, when you overcome a significant challenge, you should advance in some way. But leveling up every time you overcome a significant challenge would obviously be too much. It would feel wrong. Experience points not only make sense to me, I feel like when in real life, and this is a dangerous comparison, but I feel that in real life, when I overcome an obstacle, a significant obstacle, I have become better, more experienced. And if that happens enough, then eventually I hit kind of a plateau where I have leveled, but it doesn't mean the same thing in real life as it does outside of real life. Cool, no problem. In D&D, I think it makes perfect sense. It's great. Meanwhile, milestones, to me, don't make sense. Like, it feels like it doesn't make sense. So you're telling me no matter what I accomplish, no matter what I do, no matter what happens, I will never advance unless I do this one specific thing over here. Bogus. Bogus. That doesn't make any sense. And, of course, you could just say, well, the GM can just level you up if you accomplish something they think is worth it. Sure, but it's not the same. It's just not the same. And I'm not even talking about like other rewards like money or items or favors or whatever. Those are all great, but it just feels whack to me. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And the last reason why milestones are smelly is that I don't want to have to be begging the GM for a level. It's really important to me, maybe the most important thing to me in the world, that when I am playing in a game, I'm in it and the game is treated as real. Now, I'm not talking about nobody breaking character, any kind of hardcore stuff like that. But it's really important to me that, I don't know, we're just in it. And I don't want to have to be turning to the GM asking, was that worth a level? Was that worth a level? Can we level now? Can we level now? Like the very idea of asking the GM for a level offends me on so many levels. I want to be level 3 because I earned it, not because the GM decided, oh, yeah, sure, you can be level 3 now. It feels so arbitrary, so filthy. I hate it. And it's not like I don't understand. There are tons of people, I even have some people like this, who don't keep track of their experience points. You better believe I understand that it's much easier to just go, fine, whatever, you level now, and the players go, yay, and then they just do their fucking thing, right? I understand that it is, for some groups, much easier because you have a bunch of people that don't keep track of their experience, and they don't, they just don't give a shit, and they just go, oh, we leveled? Have we leveled yet? I get it, but I still think it smells. I think it sucks. And to anybody who would argue, oh, milestone experience encourages more role play instead of experience points, I would actually say it does the opposite. And I've even seen it do the opposite. I have been in exactly one game where the guy said that they were going to use milestone leveling. And you know what? I don't want to be like a bad guest. So I said, sure. Like, I didn't make a huge fuss about it. There was literally a point in one of the sessions where I, admittedly, had been messing around with something maybe a little longer than we should have, and the player just said, we're not getting experience for this anyway, so let's just fucking stop and leave. Terrible. I was very upset that the player would say that out loud, but also, great example of what I am saying. If a player knows they're not going to get anything out of what they're doing, they're much less likely to do it. And I say much less likely because sometimes you're interested enough that you want to go down a rabbit hole. Sometimes you're interested enough, but sometimes you're not. Honestly, I would imagine, I'll never know, but I would imagine if you use milestones and you go, okay, you're not going to level until you do this thing over here, players will just go, well, maybe we should just focus on doing that thing instead of getting off into little side adventures or anything. If that's the only thing that matters, then let's not pay attention to anything else. There are people that will just do whatever they fucking want regardless, but they'll do that even if you're using experience points. But there are people who care about like advancing or doing what you're supposed to do, and that's a pretty big telegraph that you're supposed to do whatever. I just think it sucks. I don't like it. I think that if you're lazy and a coward, or if we're being nice about it, if you just fit better with milestone leveling than experience point leveling, then sure, go ahead. But personally, I think it's whack, it's smelly, and I don't like it. You know something that bugs me? OSR stuff. I am in love, or I was in love, and now it's like, with OSR style play. To those unfamiliar, OSR is old school Renaissance. It's basically people who play in a way that's similar to, or in an attempt to preserve, earlier Dungeons and Dragons, basically. As a type of play where, you're emphasized to use clever play, which is my main axe to grind that I am going to take out here. Reading about old school Dungeons and Dragons, reading examples of play and hearing people talk about it, it's very captivating, or at least it is to me, because they paint this beautiful picture about how it's basically what you thought role playing would be like before you play it and then get disillusioned and know that it's not actually like that. The idea that you'll go into the game and every detail will count, and what you look at and the decisions you make will be really important, and there's danger around every corner, and only through your quick wits and clever play will you avoid it. That's really cool. It's really potent fantasy. And it's not just that, it's also the idea of like specific things you do. Like there's an excerpt that I read about how one player cleverly empties out their water skin onto the ground of like a patch of cave floor and then watches where the water sinks between the seams to find a hidden trap door. And that sounds amazing until you think, how many times has that player emptied out their water skin and found nothing? How many times do they do stuff and it just doesn't do anything? Perhaps I'm just not cut out for old school play, but it really makes me feel stupid and then disincentivizes me when I ask questions or try to do clever things and I just get simple one word answers from the GM back. And that's technically how they should do it. It's bad to let a player waste a bunch of time on something that's going to go nowhere. But it's also discouraging when you go, ooh, I stop and listen down the hallway. Do I hear anything? No. Okay, I look on the ground. Oh, yeah, yeah, the ground. Are there tracks? There are some. Okay. Um, I look behind me. Is there anybody coming down? Anybody coming down behind me? There's not. Okay. Um, I guess I'll just go. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been excited, I've asked some questions, none of them bore any fruit, and then I end up stumbling into a trap or something because I didn't ask the right questions. And honestly, I think that old school play was just asking a bunch of questions and then just being okay with doing that over and over again and getting nothing most of the time. But that kind of sucks. The idea of clever play sounds like there are all these neat little clues, and if you just keep your eyes open and your ears open and your mind open, you will, you know, navigate these potential hazards and be really good. But it honestly, in my experience, not that I hate the games that I'm in. I am in a great Shadow Dark game right now. I really like playing it. But for all the romance of clever play, it really just seems to boil down to asking a million questions over and over again and being fine with that being the game. And I don't have the temperament for it. I just don't. I like thinking my actions through, and I like being given the space to problem solve without someone saying, okay, now make a roll. Because whether or not my idea is good doesn't matter. It only matters if I roll high, which sucks. And I don't do that even when I'm running like just straight fifth edition. But I think the concept of clever play is kind of ass, you know? And so I still like OSR type stuff and thinking in that vein, but I'm no longer as in love with it as I used to be. And maybe it's my fault. I don't know. Just kind of sucks. It just kind of sucks. And that's not even approaching how it feels like a big tenet of clever play is also get someone else to do it instead of you. So if they die and you don't. Which just kind of, I don't know, just kind of sucks. Just kind of sucks. Maybe I'm not cut out for it. I don't know. Just seems like it kind of sucks to me. And sometimes it can really suck. I'm not going to share, and I must reiterate, the game I'm in right now is really, it's good. I like it. It's great. The GM is great. The people are great. But there was one time, where I felt profoundly upset. I left the table very upset. And I talked to the GM, and it's all cool now. There was a time where we found this sword in the middle of a ring of green flame. And it was clearly evil, but I felt weird just leaving a magic sword behind. And it doesn't hurt that in Shadowdark, when you find like magic items and things like that, you get experience for that. Hey, experience points encouraged me to engage with something. I wonder if Milestones have ever done that. Anyway, there's this, to me, obviously evil sword inside a circle of green flame. When we tried to poke something through the ring of green flame, it melted. Okay. To me. And I will float the idea that maybe this is just something that happens to me sometimes. I thought, oh, this is a test, a challenge. Can you get the sword out of the circle without frying yourself? Aha, I am up to this challenge, which I shouldn't have been. I found out later that one of the players really didn't like how much time we spent trying to get the sword, and I felt bad afterwards, and I just got to be more sensitive to other players' needs, I guess. But anyway, I thought, aha, I am up to this challenge. And so I and the other players spent a long time trying to get the sword out of there without hurting ourselves. I think someone had like a longer thing and they tried to like poke through and poke the sword out, and that fried it, melted. Someone else tried to mess with the circle of runes and got zapped for doing so. I thought, oh, maybe we can throw rocks at the sword and hit the sword enough that it'll go out of the circle. The rocks just melted, like they just didn't do it. Maybe we could lasso it. Obviously, the rope burned. I don't know. We spent a bunch of time trying everything we could. One person said, well, does someone want to try like sticking their hand in? Because we haven't tried that. And we all said no. Like, I don't know, seems dangerous. Don't want to do that. We ultimately left the sword behind. The very next session, a guy who wasn't there and usually isn't, this type of player that basically never shows up, and this is that guy, for whatever his reasons, shows up. We tell him about it. He says, oh, did anybody try sticking their hand in? And I said, well, that came up, but none of us wanted to do that because it seemed obviously pretty dangerous. And so he wanted to go back and stick his hand in. He went back, stuck his hand in, and immediately poofed inside and got the sword. It was, yes. Yeah? Bye. Yeah. It was a little more complicated than that. He started like suffocating and needed to grab the sword, and the sword like bonded with him with some other stuff. But basically, the solution was stick your fucking hand in there. And this made me incredibly angry. It made me incredibly angry on at least two fronts. In front, the first is we tried so much, and that was the answer. That sucks. For him to just come in and do it because, oh, I don't care. Oh, look, I got it. But the thing that bothered me the most, the second front, the thing that bothered me the most, that made me the angriest, was the idea that I felt like I had been punished for paying attention. I have read this little blurb about how there's some dungeon that Gary Gygax or someone else made that has like this hall or something, and there's just this random hole. And if you poke your head up that random hole, there's some ogres in there who rip your head off. And the idea is you shouldn't just go sticking your head into random holes. Stupid. Okay, fine. Yes, the thing that I'm in right now, the thing where we found the sword, was not written by Gary Gygax, but I feel like it's still the same vein. And even if not, it still sucks. If you interact with the circle and it burns everything that it touches, and nothing passes through it without getting melted. And trying to mess with the runes also hurts you. If you are a thinking human being that makes logical deductions, you would deduce that it would hurt you. It would melt you if you stuck your hand in there. And this is the opposite of that. This is the opposite of that. Well, if you stick your hand in there, it teleports you inside and you get the sword. Why would you do that? Why would you do that if someone pokes something at the fucking circle of flame and it melts? Why would you do that? You would do that because you're metagaming and you're going, oh, well, uh, wouldn't it be silly if someone stuck their hand in there? I bet that's the solution. You could technically say, oh, well, if you try everything else other than like sticking your hand inside, then you got to try it to rule it out, which is a little more reasonable, but I still think dumb. Like, I just felt very betrayed. Like, I was trying to be smart. I was trying so hard to be smart and not stupid, and I got, well, you should have stuck your hand in there, moron. Why didn't you? Because I thought clever play rewarded smart play. I guess not. And that's something else that bothers me. Clever play. But also, there's like a highly specific thing that you're supposed to do. And if you don't do that one thing, then nothing happens. Can you tell that we used to run sessions for like 8 hours? Like OG D&D, the sessions were pretty fucking long. It's not like today where it's like 3 or 4 hours. No fucking wonder things are different. Modern D&D and role-playing games are different for a lot of reasons in a lot of ways, but that definitely has to contribute to it. Like, honestly, the idea that every room is just going to be you asking a series of specific questions, most of which have a no or like few word answer, maybe makes more sense if you think, oh, we're going to be here all day, so it's okay if this room takes like 10 minutes or more. It's okay if this room takes half an hour. I don't know. I just don't like it. It just sucks. It just sucks. It just sucks. I like old school D&D play, but I also don't like it. I guess I just don't like clever play and what I thought it meant versus what it actually seems to mean. It's just bogus and a little heartbreaking, I must admit. Something that's a little more ranty. It's not, it could be video material. It's really, I don't know. It could, I don't know. I'm just going to go. I have seen more than a few people talk about uh, it's hard to challenge your players in D&D. It's hard to challenge your players in 5th edition. It's hard because they're so strong. And, like, they're strong, so that's true. But I definitely feel whenever someone says it's really hard to challenge my players, asking them, well, do you have multiple combat encounters per adventuring day? And there are some people that if they hear that, they will roll their eyes and go fuck off because they don't understand shit. And okay, fine, go ahead, continue having your problems. 5th edition was made with the intention that you would get into between 6 to 8 combat encounters over the course of an adventuring day. That doesn't include anything else you do. That's just combat. That's in addition to any puzzles, any role-playing, anything. And hearing this, one might imagine, fights take so long. How would you get through like 8 fights in a single session? You wouldn't. They're things that like connect together. An adventuring day does not equal a session. One session could be like a couple of hours of an adventuring day, and you still got the rest of the day ahead of you. There's also the fact that scaling combat encounters is something that people don't do correctly. And I say this because I did them incorrectly until I read an article from the Alexandrian that changed my entire role playing life. The whole Jaquazing, Xandering thing was really heartbreaking. But this article I read before that, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Where he basically said, hey, like the majority of combat encounters your players get into should be weaker than them. And it's like, oh, because if a challenge is equal or higher, it's going to take more time to get through because they have more tricks and hit points and things like that. But the idea, oh, they should be weaker, but that's fine because one, they don't need to stick around that long. Two, you should just make them interesting in other ways than them being a big fancy production. Your combats take like 3 hours. You only get through one fight a session because even when you're sneaking through a castle and some guards catch you, you make them mega guards that take 3 hours to fight because you think, as is natural to think, that enemies should be a true challenge of the players and a serious threat every time. And that doesn't make narrative sense, and it doesn't make design sense. But I have springboarded. These things are all kind of connected. Once you know that most fights should be weaker than the party, but they should be entertaining in other ways, be it they add flavor to where you are, or they have like a little trick to them that makes them a little more engaging than just like a hit point grind. Or there should be alternate things, like you run into those two guards. The test is really to stop them from like sounding the alarm, not to defeat them. Defeating them will be easy. And then you can get through multiple fights in one session. But also, one session is not supposed to equal one adventuring day, so damage and resource drain carries over from session to session. I think a lot of people just let people long rest whenever they want, but that's not how you're supposed to do it. You are supposed to track time, at least a little, and the rules say you can only benefit from a long rest once in like a 12-hour period, basically. You can basically long rest once a day. And when you actually like track time, which is something that Gary Gygax is famous for saying you're supposed to do, and I think it actually is useful in this case. If you track time, and if you don't let people long rest whenever they want, and you have multiple encounters over the course of an adventuring day, which does not equal one session, your players are going to be begging for mercy. Speaking from experience, I actually screwed up because a good GM would tell their players in advance, hey, I'm going to be doing things this way now, and give them some forewarning. I didn't do that because sometimes as a GM, I suck. So I made the switch, and they were in trouble. They were in trouble because people get into like one or two fights. They're kind of banged up. They've used some of their better spells and whatever. And they go, okay, let's long rest now. And you go, if you're me, you go, hey, it's still going to be 9 hours before you can like long rest again. And you've got a ways to go. I'm sorry. And well, yeah, you might get them trying to camp out or something. Um, in the instances where I deployed it, or at least the first time I did it, there was a time limit. Like they had 7 days to find something inside this massive dungeon. And it was like, okay, but if you long rest every time you get really badly hurt, which you can't, by the way, but if you go, well, once we're badly hurt, we're going to stop until we can long rest again, you're going to lose so much time. And that's important. Even if you don't do the time pressure thing, like, this is how the game is intended to run. If you let everybody go back to full health at the end of every session because it's just easier, then that means everybody's going to come in at peak strength every time, which the game is not designed to handle. When you read the description, like I did, of challenge rating, and they go, one challenge rating 12 vampire is a match for 4 level 12 characters. If you're me, you go, what? No! That vampire's not lasting more than a round at best. What kind of crazy universe do you live in where 4 level 12 characters are an equal challenge for one vampire? My God. But that makes more sense if you think equal challenge means light challenge. If you assume that equal challenge means the vampire is going to be one of like 8 different fights they're going to have the same day, sure, I can see that. And I think that's a big problem. When people say, oh, well, it's so hard to challenge players, I definitely want to go, well, are you letting them long rest whenever they feel like it? Are you keeping track of time, and are you having damage and stuff carry between sessions, or are you just letting everybody heal back to full at the end of every session? There's your problem. I feel similarly when people say, oh, fights take so long in 5th edition. Fights take so long. Well, are you making every single fight an equal or greater challenge to the party? Are you making every show an extravaganza, which sounds good, but actually is not in this case? There's your problem. And it really messes with you. I remember feeling the tension with, like, oh, you have random encounter tables. Oh, I rolled a random encounter and it's a combat. But if it's a combat, it's the only thing we're going to do this session. I really wanted to do some other stuff. Maybe I'll just let people talk their way out of it. Well, I had that problem because I wasn't doing things the way that 5th edition or D&D in general expects you to. I was doing it differently. And it doesn't even have to be like exactly 6 to 8, you know? Like, I'm sure you could get away with 5 or 4, depending on how strong or weak the encounters are. But you just don't do the thing. You just don't have everybody heal up to at the end. You warn them, hey, you're not healing up at the end. You're getting a long rest once a day, and that's it. And things that you're doing will take like hours, but not a full day. And obviously, not always. Sometimes multiple days pass. Sometimes when you're traveling a long distance, you just go, hey, you've been traveling for 8 days. I'm going to roll, I don't know, a couple of encounters and we'll see. Stuff like that totally happens. That's fine. But like in dungeons especially, people should not be at full health going into each and every room. And I think that part of the problem is video games. Like in video games, they try to put you at maximum health and resources so you have the best chances possible against the boss. And D&D is just not like that. D&D wants it to be a struggle, a trial, but it's also scaled to be that way. So when you come into the boss room, the boss is not ready to handle 4 to 6 player characters that are at full everything blasting away. And for them to be prepared, they have to be that much stronger. And you got to really jack up the power scale. But then when you jack up the power scale, they're worth more experience. So the players gain more experience. And then they become stronger faster than you would like. And because you're not a coward and you don't use milestones, you just have to jack the encounter level up higher and higher. And then you're pulling out endgame Super Doom Undead Dragons on your level like 8 party because you just don't know how to keep up. And it's like, well, you can keep up if you just did things the way that the game expects you to. Maybe if you read the rules and also had some insight beyond that, because I doubt that the rules are super clear about all of this. And some of the stuff I'm talking about I had to get from other sources. So some of this is like the book's fault, but I don't know. I mean, I do know all this stuff is important and is the solution. But then there are also people who are like, shut up, because they just don't care. They just don't want to. They're like, the nerds and the fucking, oh, you gotta have the encounters and the adventuring day. And it's like, look, I'm sorry, but like, that's the solution. If you only want to run one encounter per session, and if you, I don't know, want to let your parties heal to full at the end of every session, if you want to make things 10 times harder for yourself, okay, you can do that. But then maybe don't go crying online about how, oh, it's so hard to challenge people. It's basically like complaining about how hard it is to unscrew screws with a vise. You're doing it, but it's taking so long and it's so unwieldy. And someone goes, well, those were meant for wrenches, actually. No, I was talking about screws. They're really meant for like screwdrivers, actually. And then you roll your eyes and go, ugh, everyone talks about screwdrivers, removing screws. It's like, yeah, man, because that's the basic solution. If you want to do your own thing, then that's fine, but like, don't don't go around like, oh man, it's so hard. You're making it hard. Kidding. Just messing around. It's just kind of bogus. I don't like it. I even remember watching a video of a dude who was like, oh, I run 5 combat encounters per adventuring day, and other people say you should run more, but that's way more work. I don't want to do more work. And they unironically said this in the middle of like a 5 or whatever part video series they had made about all these buffs that they wanted to make to martial characters. And I had immediately 2 thoughts, one of which being, doesn't want to do more work, doing infinitely more work this way. But I also had a second thought of like, bro, you're probably fine. If you're running like 5 combat encounters per adventuring day, you're probably good as is. Like, what is even the problem? I don't think that dude even has a problem. I think it's just a video topic. Good cause, though. Martial characters, like, deserve love and should be buffed. So, like, I'm here and I'm with you. Maybe not about adding a bunch of different abilities and subsystems to like characters to make them better exactly, but it's really more about like ribbing than anything. Bro, you're saying, oh, it's so stupid asking me to do more work while you're doing infinitely more work to solve what problem. But it's more good natured than like actual like biting commentary. Not like they'll ever know. I wish them the best. It's bogus. And I think that about does it for things that I've thought I could make a video about this and probably won't. I kind of like the idea of making videos talking about this kind of stuff, but at the same time, I don't like it enough that I've sat down and done it. I'm really more interested in making, like, you know, the animated series that I am making, or the Robin Goblin shorts, which are these shorts where I play Dungeons and Dragons, technically Shadow Dark, with my comment section here on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. You know, I more enjoy making that kind of stuff, so that's the kind of stuff I actually am making. I generally like the idea of making videos. I just never do it. Other than once upon a time where I would make rant videos where I just had a static image up and I just talked about why Goro Akechi is trash or something. Which I did enjoy, and I've had people tell me they enjoy them. That's cool. Though I suppose that makes sense. It's entertaining when someone gets all mad and ranty about something. It's a very tried and true YouTube formula. I'm allergic to success, so I don't do it. But, you know, maybe if I, nah. I would say maybe if I did, but like it's obviously not like a secret sauce or anything. You succeed through effort, quality, and working at it for a really long time with a little bit of luck on top, and not through trends. Trends are helpful, but they don't get you like all the way there. As easy as it is to say, ooh, if I just follow these trends, I bet it will. Or a personal favorite of mine, oh, if I just drew porn, everyone would like my posts. I'd be really popular, make a bunch of money if I drew porn. Furry porn artists make a ton of money. Furry porn artists make a ton of money because they are dedicated to the life and they take it seriously and they have pursued and invested in that shit. I do not believe that you could just pick up a tablet and look at some animal reference and go, haha, money is mine. Like, anybody working in any kind of field that you think, oh, it's the cheat code for money. Like, it's the cheat code for money because of a mixture of things, and it's not actually the cheat code for money. You actually have to be there and be in it. It wasn't furry, but I say this as someone who once thought once like kind of tried to get into like fetish art. This is not about tabletop stuff at all. Now it's off the rails. So if you want tabletop stuff, then I'm basically done for now, and we'll probably stop soon because I've been at this for an hour. Anyway, I tried. I dabbled in fetish art once because I thought, I don't know, maybe I could do this. And I immediately found, like, no, not really. You gotta be willing to put in the time. You gotta feel it. You gotta be there. You gotta put in the work. And that's the truth with anything. That's the truth with anything. The idea of you just draw porn, you will be successful and make a ton of money isn't true. And I bet there are tons of people who've tried and quickly abandoned it. It's not some switch that flips or something. And they deserve respect, just like everybody else. Though that's something else entirely. People refusing to give respect to certain elements of entertainment or entertainment in general because, oh, it's just stupid little whatever. And it's like, nah, man. You got to put in work to get a good result out of anything. And I mean anything. It's not as simple, and it's never as simple as just, fuck it, whatever, man. There are people that crank out bad, faulty work. But, like, anybody who succeeds at that is still putting in more effort than the amount that people assume. There's a really great quote, as in I really like it, from Dan Olson. I forget. No, I don't forget. Uh, it's his Comfortably Doug video where he talks about how no matter how cheap and how corner cut something is that you put out, there's a certain amount of time. There's a certain amount of time that something will take, no matter how half you ass it. And I think about that a lot, right? The eternal quest is to get maximum payout for minimal input. But even still, there's a threshold. There's a threshold. Making something, even of lower quality, takes a certain amount of time and investment, no matter how many corners you cut or whatever. If I were to get into my philosophical chair, I would say that I think that that's a problem that we have maybe with society, but I think that like big companies and people who control advertising and media and consumption kind of pushed it. So it's not like from nowhere. But I really do believe a big problem that we have across the board is that we have not internalized that stuff just takes time. And we need to accept that things take time and we just have to deal with that. We are forever seeking, greedy companies are forever seeking the award winning movie that's made in a snap. And that's just not how it works. It's just not how it works. And I think that we would all be better off if someone sat down, every greedy media person, and found some language you could translate it into that would actually penetrate their thick skulls, where they just said, hey, making this quality movie is going to take 2 years, and it's going to take $100 million. I'm not a movie expert, so I'm pulling numbers just so I can not interrupt the flow of what I'm saying. Insert the correct numbers if you know them. Hey, this movie, this quality movie, is going to take 2 years to make, and it's going to cost $100 million. All the experts involved are doing everything they can to save time, to be efficient with how they're making things. We're performing at full capability. But even doing everything right, even with the wind at our backs, even being as efficient as humanly possible, we cannot make the time go down to zero, and we cannot make the cost go down to zero. The price of this movie is as low as it can be. And you not only need to accept that, but you need to budget accordingly. And that's just how it is. And not just movies, but games. All art and entertainment. Hey, we can't make it any faster than this, and we can't make it any cheaper than this. We've done our best to make it as cheap and fast as we can, but there's a limit. There's a limit that you just can't go below. It's one of the big problems with all this AI garbage. The promise that we can get it down to zero. We can get beautiful movies and entertainment at the push of a button. No, you can't. You'll get something, which is, I think, a big problem, because we have the fucking assholes pushing the button and going, it's producing something. It's producing something. We can sell it. And unfortunately, they're refusing to listen to anybody else in the room going, no, you don't understand. It produces something. That something is not good. That something is not worthwhile. And it's also torching all the creative potential for new stuff behind it. So it's bad on multiple levels. It's hurting the environment. Stop. The companies are like, it's making something. It's making something. Sure, it's making something. It's making something. Why not? The eternal quest to get 100% profit for 0% money down is a bad one. People get mad because like a movie's gonna take like a bunch of years. You'll be here. Just do something else. Just do something else. Like, I understand when a game is announced and it's like 5 years away, that sucks. So, like, don't do that. I think people should just stop making announcements so far ahead. Like, definitely. But if something's going to take a while, it's going to take a while. Go do something else. You'll be here when it comes around. Don't worry about it. Yeah. You gotta give respect to people who make shit. And you need to respect that things don't move at your timetable. They move at the timetable that they're going to move at. You have some control over that, but you don't have a lot of control. You don't have perfect control. And I think if everyone, especially greedy entertainment executives, could learn and internalize and act on, live by the idea that I don't control how long stuff takes. And to an extent, I'm just going to have to accept how long it takes to make something of quality. We would be in a better place. We'd also be in a better place, like without money, just in general. But that ain't happening. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for me. Oh, hello. Hello, Stickcrawler68. I guess it won't do it for me. At least one person's looking. How you doing today, Stickcrawler? Hope you're doing well. Nice. Doing good. Me too. I've been meaning to get back into streaming, and once upon a time I streamed like a live Dungeons and Dragons thing, like the shorts, like the Rob and Goblin shorts. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Uh, I'm glad you're digging them. I used to do like a live thing, and I wanted to get back into it, but I didn't really feel like doing it, but I wanted to stream anyway. So I've just been talking at the camera for like a really long time. And now this is just me here. I guess if you ever had any burning questions or anything like that about the series or whatever, I'm here. My day is pretty open. I got some work that I'm going to do, but it's not like immediate. I will have to work on the next Robin Goblin video, but that will be tonight. Got to do a proper count of the votes and everything. The last video was longer than normal, and that it was like closer to a minute than it normally is. You still saw it. When did I start the series? I actually started the Robin Goblin series around this time last year, in that I started it like December 2nd or 3rd of last year. And why I started the series is because I had an idea for doing it. I was just randomly, it was a Sunday night, and I was thinking, oh, if I made there's this method of running mazes in tabletop games that I really like. that I ran across once for something else with like a deck of playing cards where you like shuffle through cards and then you draw cards and you get through a maze that way. And I thought, oh, I really like this. Use this. I could use this method to run a maze. Oh, and since it's a maze, the backgrounds would be really easy. Oh, it'd be really fun. I'll post the videos and I'll like have like a few options with numbers next to them, and then like commenters can decide. And then when no one comments, I can just ask a friend to comment and we could do it for a little bit because I initially thought that no one would comment. And boy, was I wrong. And that's really great. I'm glad. So I started last year, like December 2nd or 3rd, and I did it because I thought it would be really fun and cool. And it has been. And now here we are, over a year later, still doing it. I have on YouTube like playlists of all of them going back to like the first one. Thanks. It is not required, but if for whatever reason you want to, like the entirety of the whole thing is just on YouTube from the very, very beginning when it was just a maze and like encounters instead of the more like close to role playing that I do now with these videos. I've even wondered sometimes if maybe simpler would be better, but I'm not going back, so it's not really a good question because I'm just going to keep. I can't help myself. Yeah. Oh, wow. That is amazing. I totally did not know that. Watching it from this, having watched it from already from the start, that is amazing. Whenever people come through and like start commenting, I always assume they just kind of jumped in and like that's going to be that. So that is wild. I appreciate that very much. And thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad it is really entertaining. So then I guess you have like the full context or about as full a context as you can have from the maze to the moonlit castle to the sinking abbey to the moonlit castle again to the caves to where we are at right now, the cursed castle. Damn, very cool. I'm glad. I mean, egotistical, obviously. I made it. I'm glad that you saw it, but I still think that's cool. So I can't put it any other way. Hmm. Uh, Out of curiosity, do you play any games? Are you playing or have you played any like role playing games before? Stick crawler. I know it can be hard to get into games or get games going. I've been pretty lucky on that front, but it is the struggle. Hmm. In fact, I currently run like actual 5th edition D&D at my local game shop, and that was difficult. I spent a really long time with just like nobody. Yes, a bit. That's cool. That's cool. I obviously like tabletop games, so there you are. But that's cool. I am curious. Is it Dungeons and Dragons or is it something else? Oh, nice. Very cool. I started at 3.5 and then I played one session of 4th edition and really disliked it for reasons that were kind of dumb, to be honest. And then spent a bunch of time in 5th edition. I ran 2nd edition for a little bit. There's an adventure that I made for 2nd edition, and like my group of friends and I tried it and I ran it. And I actually like old school D&D. There's some stuff that I think is kind of wonky, but there's also some stuff that I like. Second edition was a good time. I think maybe the worst part of it for me was the book layout. Like I enjoyed the diatribes that the rule books went into sometimes, but when I was looking for something really quickly, I definitely found myself feeling lucky that I could control F and find whatever it is. I bet they are. I bet they are. Though I'm kind of into it, like a little bit. Ever since I really, yes, it is very annoying. And it's like, did you know that you're looking for how much someone can carry? And it's like, did you know that the record for like shot put and like maximum bench press in the real world is this and this? And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but like looking for the thing. That's that's awesome. You got all the books for second edition. That's very cool. I think that's neat. I was using PDFs, so I had like just that. I think I got them off of Drive Through RPG. I just made do with those. There's like this big compendium of magic items that I'm sure you're familiar with. It's like 4 volumes, and I think they're alphabetical. And I remember looking through that for like loot and stuff, and I'm like, man, this is cool. One nice, very cool. We got one. Got one of the hardcovers from 1997. That's very cool. Okay, that's fine. I remember seeing them and looking through it. I was like, yeah, this is cool. I like how there are a ton of magic items. One complaint that I definitely have with fifth edition is it technically has a lot of magic items, but there are many times where I'm like, okay, I want to give magic items, but right at this moment, I don't want to give a weapon that gives a bonus or like some other thing that gives like a +1 or 2 or whatever, something that summons stuff, something that you cast spells from, or an artifact, or a useless trinket. Do you have something that's not any of those things right now? Because I want to give a magic item, but not those right at this moment, fifth edition. And fifth edition usually just shrugs, it's like, nah, man, you just named like 90% of the magic items I have. And I'm like, awesome, thank you. And browsing through like those books of like second edition, at least I think it was second edition, like magic items, I was like, man, there are so many. And yeah, some of them do the things I described, but some of them don't. And that's cool. I legitimately like how there are more magic items that you can give that do things, which is vague. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense anyway. Hopefully what I said makes sense anyway. Magic items that like do stuff instead of like the same like 4 categories of things. It's like, yeah, that's fine. I don't want to do that right now though. That's cool. And I'm sure that there are like third-party supplements that have like more magic items for 5th edition if I did more rigorous searching. And perhaps I shall, because I exclusively because of memes I've seen on the internet. You know. Hmm. Don't like the new editions because they got too many stuff. I kind of feel that, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of like having a ton of exotic choices and things. People seem to people seem to like that, or at least some people say that they like that. I remember every time I hear someone try to pitch Pathfinder to someone, they go, "You, they have like 100 billion different options." And I'm like, that's a turnoff to me personally. Like, I won't say that I don't like some choice, but like, I don't know, it's too much. I am more or less with you. We get these books with tons of new ancestries and new backgrounds, and I'm a little stodgy. I will think, do we really need this? Like, do we? I mean, I don't know. I don't know, man. I am currently in a Shadow Dark RPG game, and that game's more stripped back. It just blocks and makes the world building harder to make it feel realistic. Yeah, kinda. Yeah, kinda. Yeah. Shadow Dark is technically what I am using for the Robin Goblin videos, though you may know that because once upon a time the like beginning logo like made a joke out of that, and I made a video somewhere where I confessed to that. I think Shadow Dark's great. Sometimes I wish I had a little bit more choice in combat, like a tiny bit, but it is pretty good. The game that I'm in right now, the guy basically took the Temple of Elemental Evil and like just it was a pretty easy translation, as you might imagine. Just kind of ported it to Shadow Dark, and we just been going through that. We are currently dealing with the Air Temple, which has been cool. We had like a side diversion where we went back to town. Yeah. We had a side diversion for a while where we went back to town, like did some stuff, and also caroused. When my series started off, I hadn't world built, but later, when it got famous, did I world build even a bit? Not really. They're not really. Like I have an idea of how things like work in my head, and there's like some stuff going on, but it's not super deep. I actually feel a little self-conscious sometimes because GMs have like a reputation of, oh, you weave these rich histories and everything. It's like I have like a little bit of that, but like not a ton. Like those knights that you ran into like on your way to the abbey, they are doing something and they belong to someone. If you asked me like, oh, who do they belong to, I wouldn't just shrug and go, I don't know. But you know, like I don't have like a ton of like world building behind the scenes. I'm not super interested in that. I have enough that to me that makes sense and I can answer like reasonable questions, but I'm not like super into like the rich whatever. I sometimes jokingly call myself a fraudulent GM because supposedly GMs all do that. I'm like, no, not really. I care and I have like a framework, and that's more or less it. It's important, but I'm not super, like I'm interested in. I think that Vecna is cool, and I think that it's cool that Vecna has a backstory. But when someone's like, and there are books telling you about the day to day lives of the people who live in Calamsham, I'm like, I don't care as much about that. Cool. I'm not super psyched. Actually, I don't know. There's yeah. I'm murmuring now, but like that's just it. Oh, nice. You got your own type of world. It's just for fun. That's cool. Honestly, that's probably the best. That's probably the best way to do it, just for fun. That's very cool. You spent 3 years on it. That's pretty rad. It's very cool. I've definitely been thinking about the role of fun in inspiration and stuff. Because it's been a bit since I've made like a completely new dungeon, and I'm like, man, it's kind of more realistic. Oh yeah, so more of the grounded type play, I am assuming. Like only humans. That's cool. Hmm. I'm looking at my phone because there might be some important things going on. Monsters have almost been extinct. Interesting. I once saw somebody talking about instead of having Medusa in their game, they'd have like just one Medusa and like one Hydra, and they'd be like legendary. Hmm. Maybe something like that. Oh, jeez. Uh oh. Hmm. Squinting at my phone because I've gotten some text about some. It's like reminder for the deliveries today. It's like I don't remember anything about those. Hmm. Hmm. It's kind of weird when fantasy monsters terrorize people for thousands of years and no one's really hunting them completely. I feel you, but I'm willing. I don't know. I'm willing to believe it a little bit. Hmm. Well, that's a fair point. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, I can't. I can't argue with that. Oh, really? Tigers in Korea got like the same treatment? I did not know that. Or lions in Europe? Really? That sounds vaguely familiar. I might have heard something about that. Well, I can't really argue with history. Hmm. Something's afoot. Weird. My work has messaged me about deliveries today, but like I don't remember there being any work today. That's why I'm streaming. It's like, yeah, whatever. Uh, Probably gonna have to leave in a little bit. Not that I'm not having a pleasant time. Hmm. Mm, yeah, by the way. Have I ever built my own world? Uh, yeah, a little. Like, a little bit. Though it still needs more work. Um, but I will have to elaborate on that later. I didn't know I was supposed to be working today, but apparently I was. So, unfortunately, that's going to do it for the stream. But thank you for coming. It was wonderful chatting with you. And uh, new Robin Goblin video Wednesday. So, tomorrow, hope you have a good rest of the day and see you around.